Today we are here for Web3 Voice by Zeeve, and we have very esteemed guests today. We have David from Rymedi, CEO, founder, and we have John Nahas from Ava Labs. First of all, I would like to welcome you both. Um, and we are very excited that you have joined this session. So starting with David, would you like to introduce yourself and a bit about Rymedi?
Yeah. And Ravi, thank you so much for having us out today. So, yep, I'm Dave Stefanich, CEO and co-founder of Rymedi. We're a blockchain-based health platform that handles patient and population data management in a highly compliant ecosystem that evolves around the world. It's not just in a single system, but it's also multi-compliance regional build-out. On the Rymedi backbone, we handle clinical diagnostics and toxicology testing, laboratory integrations where testing results have to go back to a patient as well as a healthcare system, clinical and device clinical trials, the development and introduction of these new products out to market. And the secure 3-subnet backbone is really our secret sauce out there, where we actually physically and logically separate PII and PHI data with an encrypted tertiary key set that allows the backbone of the concerns on our industry, which is security, privacy, and compliance. And through that subnet architecture, we're able to fulfill that across multiple jurisdictions, ranging from Australia to Southern Africa, Europe, and North America. So again, Ravi, thanks for having us out today.
Oh, great. That's pretty cool. Yeah, John, would you like to introduce yourself and a bit about, Avalanche project and ecosystem, especially subnets?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. John Nahas, Chief Business Officer at Ava Labs. So we are a service provider to the Avalanche Foundation and a software company that seeks to grow the use cases on the Avalanche network. So in my capacity, I oversee a lot of different verticals, including institutional capital markets, enterprise, wallets and exchanges, arts and culture, DeFi, as well as a lot of the regional teams that we have at Ava Labs supporting the growth of Avalanche in India, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Turkey, Middle East, and more jurisdictions coming forward. Avalanche differentiates itself from a lot of the other blockchain systems out there. And to give you kind of an idea, if you think of Bitcoin is a single chain, single asset system. Ethereum, Solana, a lot of others are single chain, multi-asset systems. Avalanche is different in that it's a multi-chain, multi-asset system. So we have a public permissionless chain that anybody can build on. That's more on the crypto native side, the things you see in DeFi and NFTs and crypto use cases. But we also have the ability to launch what we call subnets, which are customizable layer 1 blockchains of your own. And that are, up until now, you could launch private permission chains, permission public chains, and we will be having in the next couple of months public permissionless chains launching. So Avalanche really is a network of blockchains that will unlock interoperability and the ability for builders such as David in his space, traditional finance application and builders and companies, crypto native builders and developers to really launch the applications and the businesses of their choice based on the parameters that they need, using the virtual machine of their choice, using whatever regulatory and compliance standards that they need to apply. I think what we've seen up until now in the industry is blockchains that are a solution, and people need to fit their problem or their use case into that existing solution. Avalanche really gives the builders and the businesses the flexibility to launch a blockchain that fits their needs, that can be tailored rather to jurisdictional requirements, compliance requirements, regulatory requirements, or whatever innovation that they choose to do. They can launch their own token, they can have no token. It really gives that kind of free reign to the builder to use blockchain technology to unlock the use cases that they want to build.
No, I think that's super interesting. And interestingly, John, our journey, so we were working with a lot of permission protocols when we started our journey 4 years back, like Fabric, Besu, R3 Coda, and then we got into public protocol space. 2 years back, when I read about Avalanche subnet, there was an article about the whole concept of subnets. And that, in fact, was the motivation behind getting into appchain space. And in fact, we were one of the people, along with Ava Labs, who were actually started using the word appchain in the industry. And I was so excited about subnets that, the whole idea of meeting Justin way back during one of the events in New York in 22, I think was the start of our journey and partnership with Ava Labs. And I think we are very, very exciting about the whole subnet architecture, the kind of flexibility, as you rightly mentioned, the flavors of private blockchains to permission to semi-public to fully public, so all kind of flavors. And I think David can always vouch for it. It can enable, extremely complex set of operations, including compliances, security, etc. The way the architecture designed. So, David, we have seen in last 4 or 5 years, a lot of enterprises are also getting into, or enterprise use case, I would say, maybe driven by a Web3 startup, or maybe driven by the enterprise themselves. But I think overall, if we see, the healthcare vertical has not seen that much adoption, right? So, but still, I think you have got a proven platform now with a proven tech behind it. So what is your views that, what are the challenges in the healthcare industry today, and how blockchain and how Avalanche subnets can, help other people look at blockchain space very seriously?
Yeah. Ravi, it really focuses around understanding the industry a bit. Healthcare is a segment of life sciences. So healthcare, traditional healthcare system where you're going to go in and have your medical work done. Outside that, across the life science ecosystem, you have clinical trials. Post-COVID, the regulatory landscape has changed so much that distributed clinical trials can be admissible if you have two key components. You have location so that you can understand what individual, that unique de-identified individual, is doing a transaction where, and the serialization of that. It fulfills a regulation called real-world evidence. So now we're finding the clinical trial process, not just for pharmaceuticals like you hear, but also the clinical trial process for a device. So we have clients that are developing world-class devices that, for example, just launched across the Bahamas, where they're actually able to do a blood draw and do a prostate screening for an entire population remote. That data can handle population management, but because the serialization, because of the segmentation of PII and PHI, and the nature by which we've architected the Rymedi platform using subnets, that de-identified serialized ecosystem can be used for multiple clinical trials because of its real-world efficacy. So we're seeing that more and more. Also, on population health management, we have a program that's working closely with a group out of Eastern Africa, where we're identifying a patient, finding out a diagnostic test if they have a certain disease state, but also working closely with pharma to be sure the right treatment got to the individual. Typically, that's where the life science industry stopped in the past, but now countries are taking it one step further, where you have something very similar to a digital clinical trial protocol that over the next 12, 24 months, you're monitoring the achievement of wellness and disease eradication in a geographic region, in an acute care organization that's looking for obesity, that's looking for Alzheimer's, mental health issues. And we're seeing that model of those 4 specific verticals that I covered earlier on top of the exact same architecture, multiple jurisdictions. Clinical trials are maybe sponsored in the US, but people don't realize they're actually executed in Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Europe. That's 4 different global compliance jurisdictions covered with one platform, which is bringing products to market faster at a lower cost. And that's where the pharmacy side of that solution is coming through. So traditional healthcare and a healthcare system, they're figuring out as they're extending into the clinical trial space, but that life science industry is really embracing and has been our beachhead for adoption in the global market.
Oh, I think that's super exciting. And John, from Avalanche ecosystem is massive today, and I'm sure you have been you have users and organizations building across verticals. Where do you see healthcare from an adoption standpoint?
I think first and foremost, the credit goes to David for being one of the trailblazers, right? In using Avalanche, but also in bringing a lot of the use cases that he talked to on chain. I think when you talk to healthcare or life science providers, similarly to established financial entities, government offices, right, which we talk to across the board, they've been skeptical. And they've been skeptical, I think rightfully so, because the existing architectures that had previously been available didn't serve their needs. The technology may have been there. The technology may have enabled use cases, but these are highly regulated industries that rely on compliance, that rely on privacy, that have established rules that they cannot break from. And some of the ethos of the crypto native side doesn't fit into these industries. Traditionally, and up until now, they've had to only resort to the private permissioned, what we call, the enterprise chains, right? Well, those enterprise chains are great, but in essence, they're a silo, right? They live on their own. They don't really bring the benefits of distributed ledger technology and blockchains to the forefront. What we've seen with some of the financial institutions we're working with, some of the governmental partners that we're talking to, and especially with David, is that there is a use case for private permission use cases or permission public use cases running on a public architecture, right? Just like the internet, right? Banks use the internet. They have their own rules. They have their own privacy. They connect to some other sites. They don't connect to other sites. And that kind of flexibility that you see with the internet is starting to take place in Web3 using the Avalanche ecosystem, because you can have private permission chains communicating with permission public chains and vice versa. And I think with health in particular, more than anything else, right? People, of course, care about their privacy. They care about their identity. They care about their money. But when it comes to people's health, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of sensitivities around that. So up until now, there have been great ideas. There have been great builders that have an idea, but they haven't had the platform or the foundation to build that application or that use case using the technology, because it just simply hasn't been made available. And I think with the Avalanche architecture, that gives people like David and Rymedi the ability to use this technology for good, to be more efficient, to streamline operations, to save on costs, but while retaining the privacy, while being compliant, while having compliance in different jurisdictions adhered to, because the platform allows you to build the product that you need rather than forcing you into the existing space. Having said that, I think a lot of us have seen what's been happening on the healthcare side with traditional centralized models such as 23andMe and all these other guys, where people's personal private information gets hacked or gets leaked. And at Ava Labs, one of our missions is to digitize the world's assets. Well, assets don't have to only be money, right? Your assets could be your time. They could be your privacy, could be your medical records. They could be anything that could be digitized, and that is a form of value. So, kudos, of course, first and foremost to David and the Rymedi team for really being pioneers in trailblazing what can be done using blockchain. And I think they're really, at the pinnacle of that and pushing the space forward and really highlighting the benefits of Avalanche in doing so.
And Ravi, one point related to what John has said, we always tell the team within the guardrails of our industry, where can we introduce innovation? And we are fully subnet architecture or multi-jurisdictional, but we're also ISO 9000 compliant, or SOC 2 compliant, ISO 14000. We've had multiple HIVAC audits by healthcare industries, and we were able to work closely with them to educate on our architectural decisions. It wasn't, hey, I've got a blockchain, I want to go use it. I had a problem in an industry, and we found the right technology. And we have taken that technology, working closely with the Ava team to say, how do we integrate the way we're going to leverage these tools to solve the problem that face people today? And some of the data breaches we are out there, once individuals lose trust, it stymies the ability to bring wellness to market. It's all about trust and security and continuity. Some of this architecture that's been done on the subnet side, the speed of the transactions was a barrier 3 years ago, where working closely with John and the team, we were able to get north of 60,000 transactions a second. I'm actually a global enterprise platform that doesn't have performance needs, which were a misconception in the past. So you have compliance in the normal regulatory landscape that the industry speaks of, as well as the speed and the throughput. Now we continue to roll out globally, impacting these lives. Now we're starting to see the same business model adopted in different geographic regions. And that's where I think we're going to really see the adoption of the right solution architected in a way to treat the global economy, to treat the global wellness problem that's occurring, and the health inequities that exist on our planet. And it's a bit of technology, it's a bit of understanding, and just trusting in what you believe to do and executing on it.
I think I want to add something to that. I want to add to something David highlighted. What we have seen up until recently with a lot of people in the space is that the blockchain part is the special part. Like it might be healthcare, it might be finance, it might be whatever, logistics, but they lead with the blockchain first because maybe a board member said we need to be innovating. So find us a use case, find something that so we can say we are using blockchain, find something so that we can show that we are innovating. But none of this actually happens. None of it is translated into real world action and is adopted. And I think what David has done and has shown, and what I think we provide, is that blockchain can be the infrastructure layer and the technology tool that enables new innovation in business, in workflows. It's not the highlight, it's the backbone. And I think there's been a negative incentive to lead with the blockchain aspect first, which then puts you in a different league with everyone else that's pushing blockchain or crypto related things. Instead, this is showing what the technology really enables on the backside.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think that has been one of the biggest challenges, since I've been seeing this since 2017, where people were excited about the whole tech piece and then seeing, what can be done using this tech, which is, of course, a very wrong approach. We worked with a lot of POCs pilots during those early years. And most of them, never went live or went into production because I think as you rightly said, the approach itself was on the completely other way around. And I think Rymedi has done a splendid job in terms of navigating, because I understand even if you have such an amazing architecture like subnet, still navigating that in the real world, getting all those compliances in place, explaining people that how it works, why this architecture is meeting compliances, etc., is a arduous job, and we have seen with other enterprises as well. So I think that again will become very, very important for people who are planning to get into healthcare space and wants to tackle some of the challenges using blockchain at the back.
Yeah, and Ravi, you said a great point there. The number one question I get every meeting is, why did you choose blockchain? And I always respond the same way. Let's simplify it. What am I trying to enable and what am I trying to prevent? I'm trying to prevent the mistrust that stymies wellness to go into the market. And what am I trying to enable? Role-based permission authorization with an established compliance architecture to be able to access your information, as well as organizations collaborate with that information to accelerate innovation in the market. And it's as simple as that. And that's the number one leading question that I think John was touching on. Folklore in the market hasn't facilitated and truly understood a topic, and there's some misconceptions in the past. And rarely do we talk about the infrastructure. Sometimes I don't mention the operating systems we run. I don't talk about the database model. Some people are like, how are you able to achieve it? Then I'm able to unpack what we've done. But, when you look at this call, we have world-class subnet architecture, but also on the Zeeve side, for a company like Rymedi, it is all about the blockchain infrastructure that Zeeve helps us provide. The roll-up as a service. There are nuances to the technology to implement it in the way we've done, and it's partnerships like this call that look at what everyone does well, bring it to the table to look at it and go, these three legs of the stool is really what props up Rymedi. And, I would be remiss if thinking we were to think about attacking this market that needs help so desperately as a single tenant. And it's great that we can share that across our different organizations, because it's the mass of the agglomeration of what we all bring to the table that has allowed us to impact lives. And just last week when we were doing some of that work in the Bahamas on a remote island, I mean, literally 160 people on an island, we're out there doing, at-home prostate screening for cancer. making sure that the market understands that, but also sharing it across our partners. It's why we do what we do. We're technologists, but we always want to know the why behind it. And it's just been great partnerships.
No, absolutely. We too are super excited with, partnership with Ava Labs as well as Rymedi. Ava Labs, because, we are very excited about the whole technology behind Avalanche. And at the same time, with Rymedi, because, we got, I think it was our foray into the healthcare space. And at the same time, it's very cutting edge, very challenging itself to start with. But yeah, gave us a lot of experience managing larger appchain infrastructures. And that becomes handy while dealing with, multiple enterprises. So just, I think, just a couple of pieces, like what other healthcare use cases do you see where, blockchain can be utilized or we are going to see in next 5 years or so?
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit. What we've done on the Rymedi side is those 4 quadrants I talked about: clinical diagnostics, laboratory integration, clinical trials, and that compliant population data management piece we put together. What we've been finding with the emergence of the DeSci market. So from Rymedi's perspective, we think of those as enterprise clients. They use a little bit of all of it. So we've actually opened up an SDK and a way to use the compliance backbone. Where Rymedi focuses in the life sciences in those 4 quadrants, there's some projects going on right now where they're looking at biobank samples around the world. They're looking for oncology samples. How do those get stored and tracked? There's a wonderful project that's going on in the UK right now that's working with us to do that through an SDK aspect of it. We're also seeing some accelerated genomic therapy work in geobanks running on us. There's a university in the Southeast that runs their precision medicine initiative where you have to tie in genetics, samples, population management, but it's turning into layering an AI piece on top of it to do predictive prescriptive authority related to, are these medications going to be effective for a population? How do we save lives? What we've been contacted with in our traditional space has been amazing. What's really been eye-opening is people leveraging the VM backbone we put across the subnets. It's like compliance by design. Pump your data through the protocol in the way we've structured it, and then you fall into the same compliance engine. And I think that's going to be super exciting as we see that, possibly picked up by large cloud providers down the road. John and the team will continue to advance on speed, working closely with us to figure out what that compliance VM will be down the road. And that's where I get really excited about, because it's not just it's a tribe mission to deliver wellness out there. And I'm just grateful we're able to be at the part of it. But that's what we're seeing in our space.
Yeah, that's awesome. And John, just one last question. Can you share some exciting innovations happening in the Avalanche ecosystem pertaining to subnets? What is coming next? Whatever you can share in the public domain.
Well, I will talk about what we have coming that I think is very exciting and what it unlocked. And I think when we'll wait to see when those different projects actually launch and they'll announce on their own. So as I mentioned, up until now, you've had private permission chains, subnets. You've had permission public. We've had enterprises use this for gaming, for loyalty and rewards. But come into summer, we're anticipating the launch of public permissionless chains. So what you see there and what you'll start to see there is a lot of the innovation and a lot of the crypto native stuff that's happening launch on their own chains. A lot of these chains have been launching now. They use the Cosmos SDK, but they'll be able to launch within the Avalanche ecosystem. And why is this important? We've been talking about compliance and jurisdictional things. This is important because I think something that we saw at Avalanche is when we first launched the chain, we started our focus on DeFi. And why we did that? That's where the users were first. That's what provided the tech. But more importantly, we've had tremendous success on the institutional front. Institutions and incumbents will never change. They will not progress, and they will not innovate unless they are forced to do so by seeing innovation happen elsewhere. So public permissionless chains will allow decentralized public permissionless builders and programs to launch. These projects may or may not be in compliance, but they will show what is possible, right? And AMM in DeFi is now showing banks how they can use an AMM maybe to settle securities or to settle other financial instruments. And in that same way, the innovation that happens in an open permissionless space really is a magnet to force incumbents, whether in finance or in medicine or in industry or wherever it may be, to see what is happening and adopt that. So that's one. Two, I think we have Avalanche Warp Messaging, which is currently out, and Teleporter, which will allow for the movement of assets across subnets and the C chain in a more seamless way. So the goal ultimately being with a proper UX UI to move assets across chains as easy as it is to move a file on your desktop between folders, right? That's how easy we should strive to make it. And finally, we have an Avalanche community proposal, ACP 77, that's been proposed, and that will come up for a vote. And if that passes, what that will enable is for subnet-only validators. And why is this important? The current Avalanche architecture requires a validator to validate both the main chain, the public permissionless chain, as well as your subnet. Well, we've learned and taken feedback actually from the industry and from partners that banks, healthcare providers, other participants in a larger ecosystem may not be able, due to compliance or regulatory reasons or compliance and regulatory uncertainty, to validate the main chain. So they want to run their own subnet, and they will put up a bond and they will pay a fee to the network to run their own blockchain without having to touch crypto, right? Some people want a blockchain and not have to touch crypto, especially a public permissionless token or crypto. So, with partners such as Zeeve, Ava Labs has Ava Cloud, partners are going to arise, and Zeeve has done a phenomenal job with Rymedi to fill in that gap as a service provider, as a blockchain, as a managed service, let's call it. So you're going to see a lot more subnets launch that have wanted to launch or have waited to launch because they've needed this one piece to solve the compliance problem. So whether it's the and secondly, we've had a high barrier of entry to launch a subnet. The cost was high. It was a high initial cost and then a lower ongoing cost. Well, what we've heard from builders and developers is it's a little bit prohibitive. We've been able to do this because we've been using this system to refine and perfect the subnets as much as we can over the course of the last year. It is now time to drop that barrier of entry and that cost and let anybody, anywhere, whether developer or industry or enterprise, to launch a chain really quickly, right? In a matter of hours, if not days, for a low upfront cost. And then they can scale up from there in what they need. So lower barrier of entry, lower cost, more interoperability, and public permissionless chains. These are the things that I think are all coming together in a perfect storm for Avalanche that are going to take us to that next level.
I think that's amazing to hear. And I can vouch for that, we have quite a few customers right now on the enterprise side who are struggling with pretty much the same thing. And I think we have, brought some of the customers to Ava Labs. There's a clear barrier to entry in terms of bringing these validators. And you're right, we have, for one customer, we have set account abstraction so that they don't need to deal with the tokens. And that's, I think, a generic problem among the enterprises, because we are expecting them to navigate one side of it, to adopt something. And then if it comes with 10 other compliance issues, I think it becomes even more challenging, right? And it becomes more distractive, I would say. So cost, time, distraction with these overheads. Of course, I think with this kind of roadmap, I'm assuming we are going to see hundreds and hundreds of Avalanche subnets, because from a technology stack perspective, I can tell you, because we are working with all these stacks in the right now in this space, all the appchain stacks. And the most mature stack is Avalanche subnets. On our platform, actually, you can deploy a working subnet in just a few minutes, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's not possible with any other stack. You cannot launch a production grade appchain infrastructure we do provide dev nets and test nets you can launch using our platform. But when it comes to production launch, I think Avalanche is such a simple yet mature and like the sophistication is behind the scene. But on top of it, I think it's a pleasure to work with. It's architecture.
Likewise. It's great to work with partners like you, and especially David as well.
Yeah, hey, Robbie, we always say that Avalanche subnets provide us hardened enterprise infrastructure where people don't have to worry about it. And we see more risk officers exhale a little bit because we've already thought through the questions that they're going to receive and the reproducibility. And I'm not sure everyone is aware, but we've actually filed a master application file with the FDA. So we're covering, and everyone is well aware of the subnet architecture. It's the core of who we are, what we do, but it's also that backbone that allows that compliance aspect to be achieved. And it's been submitted to the largest regulatory agencies we have, and they're aware of what we're doing, and the future's bright.
Absolutely. I think with that, it has been super exciting and interesting to work with you guys, as well as you coming on this session, taking out time. I think it has been very helpful. And I think all the people who are going to watch the video of this, people who are startups or enterprises looking to leverage subnets for healthcare industry, I think it will be super helpful to get meaningful insights and a lot of information, and a lot of encouragement and motivation as well. So with that, I would like to thank David and John to join us, and again, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us. Thank you, David.
Right. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks. Yep. Bye. Cheers.